Hello, this is Ms. Hook, and welcome to the chapter on blood vessels. Blood vessels are vasculature, transport blood around the body and back to the heart. Arteries always carry blood away from the heart. Arteries away. And generally, arteries are oxygenated. Everything from the aorta branching off from the left side of your heart is oxygenated going to the body. But the right side of the heart is pumping out deoxygenated blood. So the pulmonary arteries are deoxygenated. After arteries, going away from the heart, we have capillaries. These are a single layer of cells, very thin, where we have the actual gas exchange, nutrient, and waste exchange between the blood and our cells. And then after that gas exchange occurs, the blood needs to return to the heart so it can get pumped out again. And it returns to the heart through veins. So here's a slide showing an artery and a vein. Arteries have thicker walls, smaller spaces. Veins have thinner walls, larger spaces. So that space where blood flows through is called the lumen. And the walls in arteries and veins have three layers. Tunica intima, touching the lumen, the space, media, and externa on the outside. Capillaries, on the other hand, go down to just one layer, a single layer of endothelium with just a little bit of basement membrane. So here's a figure showing the different layers of the arteries, veins, and capillaries. There's the single layer of capillaries. We're going to go through those different layers. So tunics is another word for layers. So the tunica intima is the inner layer. That's endothelium, just like the capillaries, just like the inner layer of your heart, the endocardium. It's very smooth, which reduces friction. It helps blood flow through more easily. Next, in the middle, you have the tunica media. Here you're going to have smooth muscle and elastin. So smooth muscle can contract. This is the area that can contract or relax to change the amount of space in your blood vessel. And elastic is stretchy. So those layers of elastin stretch. When the smooth muscle contracts, makes the space smaller, it's called vasoconstriction. Vessel constricting. When it relaxes, this space is larger, it's called vasodilation. So this is going to be important for A, directing where blood flows, and B, the pressure of the blood. And then the outer layer is the tunica externa. Sometimes you'll see the word tunica adventia. Here we've got lots of connective tissue. Collagen fibers are present. Collagen is really strong, so they protect and anchor, hold things in place. And in there's lots of spaces. So you've got area for nerves to run through as well as lymphatic vessels. And those will take any fluid we lose from our blood vessels, filter it, and return it back into the blood flow. Okay, so to summarize, both arteries and veins have these three layers. The layer lining the space is the tunica intima, smooth to reduce friction. In the tunica media, you've got elastin, this elastic fiber, and smooth muscle, which can contract. And the elastic stretches. And then on the outer portion, the tunica externa, you've got lots of connective tissue with spaces in the extracellular matrix where you have nerve fibers and lymphatic vessels running through. Okay, so now we're going to get into the different types of arteries, go down to capillaries, and the different types of veins. We're going to start out close to the heart and move further away. So branching right off of the heart, like the aorta, are the elastic arteries. They can also be called the conducting arteries. Elastic arteries stretch a lot. That's going to be important for allowing them to take on so much pressure when blood gets pumped out of the heart. They need to be able to stretch and not break. And they're called the conducting arteries because They're just basically paths that blood moves through. They don't direct it anyway other than it just conducts through them. It just passes through. They're not determining where blood flows more to one area rather than another. All the blood are going through these areas. So they have very small layers of smooth muscle. They're not active in vasoconstriction. But what's really cool is that they act as pressure reservoirs. So what that means is when the ventricles are contracting, there's a lot of pressure as the blood gets pushed out of the heart. And so the elastic arteries expand. They get bigger, like a rubber band gets pulled on. And then when the ventricles relax, no more blood gets pushed out. And so then the elastic arteries recoil. And as they recoil, they keep pushing the blood that's there down the arteries. So we have a more continuous blood flow. It's not blood flowing when the ventricles contract and stopping when they relax. It's a higher pressure and then a slightly lower pressure, but it's still moving through the body. So here's a picture showing how they expand and recoil. So they have lots of pressure as the ventricles contract, they expand, and then when the ventricles relax and they're filling again, the artery walls recoil, and that pushes some of the blood here down again towards the capillaries. After you move from the elastic arteries, further along the vessels, you'll get to the muscular arteries. So these have a thick tunica media, lots of smooth muscle. They're going to be very active in vasoconstriction and dilation. Another name for the muscular arteries is the distributing arteries. They're called distributing arteries because when they're vasoconstricted or dilated, they can control which organs, which parts of the body are getting more blood flow and which are getting less. After the distributing arteries, you have arterioles. So these are the smallest arteries. You'll see them go down from the 3 tunics, like the other arteries, down to 1 where they thin out, and then we have capillaries. These also have a lot of smooth muscle. They have what's called the highest resistance of any of the vessels. So there, when arteries are relaxed, they control blood flow into more specific areas. So here's a summary of the different arteries, and you can see the elastic arteries, muscular, and arterioles. And notice the difference in the scales of the sizes. 1.5 centimeters versus 6 millimeters versus 37 micrometers, micrometers. Very small. From the arteries, we go down to capillaries. And everywhere that's vascularized has capillaries. They have almost direct access to every cell. You can only have cells as far away from the capillaries as gases and nutrients can diffuse to them. So you have to have these capillaries very, very close to the cells that they're providing nutrients for. Capillaries are very small. They're so small that only one red blood cell can pass through at a time. So here's an arteriole leading to a capillary bed, and you can see the color change from red to blue, showing that the oxygen is diffusing from the blood into the tissue, the cells around the blood vessel. The cells here are a single layer of epithelial cells, simple squamous epithelium. When it's inside your body, it's endothelium. These cells are really thin, and there's only a single layer, so that all the nutrients and gases can diffuse through the cells as quickly as possible. The thinner they are, the easier it is for those nutrients and waste to diffuse. Okay, so we have gotten the tissues the nutrients they need, picked up the waste they've produced. The blood's ready to be sent back towards the heart so it can be pumped out to the lungs and then back to the body again. So on our return, we use the veins. First, it goes through venules. After the capillaries, you've got the capillaries merging back together, and they form venules. So these are going to be slightly larger than the capillaries, moving back towards the heart. And after the venules, those merge together, get larger, you have veins. So compared to arteries, veins have much thinner walls, a larger space, and much less pressure. In fact, the pressure is so low that you need valves. Remember, valves prevent backflow. So what happens is you'll have pressure on the vein, blood will move up, and it'll go through that space. And then if it tries to go back down, it gets caught in the flaps, keeping it from going too far backwards. That way we can keep blood flow unidirectional, moving towards the heart. You'll often see veins called capacitance vessels or blood reservoirs because a majority of the blood is going to be in the veins at any time. They're not full, they can hold blood quite well. Okay. So as we said, there are some adaptations of the veins to keep blood flowing forward even though there's a low pressure. So we've got valves there for one, and you also will have in some areas venous sinuses. These are big, basically sacs where veins empty into before they continue on. So like in the back of the heart, you have the coronary sinus where all the blood from the coronary veins drains before it goes back into the right atrium. And in your brain, you have the dural sinuses. Fun fact, because you need the tunica externa to keep veins stabilized, and they have such little pressure, if you don't have enough vitamin C to make that collagen, you get what's called scurvy. And in scurvy, you've got those veins collapsing. And another fun fact is that if you're not able to push blood through the vessels, it can pool up in an area. One of the ways to push it through is to use your skeletal muscle, and that pushes against it. So whenever you're walking, contracting your leg muscles, you're helping to push blood back towards the heart. These days, a lot of people get varicose veins, and that's because we're not as active as our ancestors. So what happens is we're not as active, the blood pools, you get those leaky valves, and then you can see it. So here's a view of a vein. It looks very similar to the semilunar valves in your heart, where the vein has been cut open and you can see it. So blood pushes through, but if it tries to go back, it gets caught in the flap. So to review, arteries, smaller lumen, thicker walls, veins, larger lumen, thinner walls. So sometimes it's beneficial to have blood take multiple routes to an area. We saw that in the coronary vessels as a way to make sure that there was one way that blood could still get through if there was a blockage. You see that in other areas too throughout the body. For example, here's your knee, and you can see that there are these anastomosomes, these different routes. As the joint moves, some of them might have pressure on them where blood can't move through, but hopefully some of them will be open and you can get blood to your lower extremities. You'll also see venous anastomosomes oftentimes, like in the digestive area. They'll merge together before coming back. I would pause the video and go through these questions, taking a chance to summarize what you've learned before you move on. If you're watching the PowerPoint, you can view the animations to help you with this content.